Good morning and welcome to the first MOLLI presentation of the year. Our webinar today is going to be about a preview of the Reimagined Maryland Online Leadership Institute. Before we get started, if everybody could please take a moment to sign in with your full name and also the name of your institution, we would love that. Thank you. And before I turn things over to Dr. Hernandez for the presentation today, I'd like to just take a moment and introduce myself. My name is Robyn Alexander. I'm a learning designer at Howard Community College, and I'm the co-recipient of the 2023 Doug Gray MOLLI Leadership Award. I'm going to be monitoring the chat today, so if you have questions during Dr. Hernandez's presentation, please feel free to drop them in there. And I just want to tell you a little bit about Dr. Hernandez. I had the pleasure of first meeting her last June at the Maryland Online Leadership Institute residential program. We had so much fun there. And so I'm looking forward to the insights that she's going to share with us today. Dr. Shinta Hernandez is the founding dean of the virtual campus at Montgomery College in Montgomery County, Maryland. And she's been with the institution for 17 years. Which is awesome. She is also the newly appointed director of the Maryland Online Leadership Institute, MOLLI, and the president of the Community College Consortium for Open Educational Resources, Executive Council. Without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Shinta Hernandez. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Robyn, and thank you for that warm introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and choosing to spend your hour with us. I have to say I was honored when asked to do this presentation on this topic because this is the first webinar of the Maryland Online webinar series for the calendar year. So I appreciate this opportunity. And as Robyn pointed out, I am the newly appointed MOLLI director. So when you hear the word MOLLI, that stands for Maryland Online Leadership Institute. I am going to share my screen here and offer a sneak peek, if you will, at what MOLLI was, is, and will be. But first, before I do that, I recognize from the introductions in the chat that we have some colleagues from across the state of Maryland, but also across the country. So I'm recognizing the time zone differences here. Thank you so much for being here. So when I was appointed back in early fall, in September as the MOLLI director, I had a vision for what I thought the reimagined MOLLI might look like. And I had some ideas, and those ideas stem from a lot of different discussions I had with people from across the state, across the region, across the country, the different networks that I'm involved in, and just doing research on what online education, leadership, professional development should look like. And so with support from Maryland Online Senior Leadership, what you'll see today is a preview of what we've been fondly calling MOLLI 2.0. So in this presentation today, I will share with you a brief history of MOLLI and then go into what this reimagined MOLLI will look like, and then say some next steps in terms of maybe some opportunities that some of us can be involved in as we continue to develop and deliver this reimagined MOLLI. Before I get into what the Maryland Online Leadership Institute is, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about Maryland Online, which is known as MOL. So if you hear me saying MOL, that's what that is. It was launched in 1999 with more than a handful of member institutions. And its primary focus at the time was to promote online learning and have direct student success impact by offering assistance to students. But over the course of many, many years, with the evolution of Maryland Online, but also the evolution of higher education alone, now we are up to, I think it is 19 member schools, including all of Maryland state community colleges. So, and the focus now is more on professional development, for faculty and online educators and online education leaders. And so what you'll see here is, or what you'll hear from me today is how MOLLI, which is a signature component of Maryland Online, has developed over the years. So MOLLI started in 2017. Its founding director was Doug Gray, and its mission was really to expand and nurture those who are in this area throughout the state to become better educators and better leaders in online education. Over the years, what we have seen is that MOLLI has grown in numbers and in participation, and we hope that with this MOLLI reimagination, that we will continue to see a growth in participants, particularly because what I will share with you later today is the numerous opportunities that I'm really excited to be able to deliver in collaboration with so many wonderful people from across the state and across the region. In sharing with you what the MOLLI team looks like, I want to also talk about the MOL senior leadership. The MOL, the Maryland Online Executive Director is Dr. Wendy Gilbert. The MOL Director is Dr. Julie Porosky-Hamlin, who also oversees MOLLI. And the MOL Board Chair is Dr. Michael Mills. And between the four of us, we have a lot of frequent communications and discussions about what a reimagined MOLLI might look like. And I appreciate their support and always the continuous opportunities for me to bounce off ideas with them. And so here is my team. I have a public information coordinator, and in fact, actually a newly appointed public information coordinator. Her name is Jessica Adams, and she is from Harvard Community College, teaches math, and she is a MOLLI graduate. And when I say MOLLI graduate, what that means is it's similar to Robyn's experience in the MOLLI residential program this past summer, 2023. We are a firm believer of homegrown talent and really capitalizing and maximizing the people who are in our network and offer opportunities for them to grow in their leadership through our opportunities here. So Jessica Adams is our new public information coordinator who will be responsible for strategic marketing and communications about everything MOLLI. And then I also have a project team and mentor coordinator, Fred Stemple from Garrett College in Western Maryland, who has been with MOLLI and Maryland Online for a very long time. So he has quite the wealth of knowledge and historical knowledge of the organization. So he is the project team and mentor coordinator. And what that means is out of the MOLLI residential program, which I will go into greater detail in a minute, but he helps mentor teams through the MOLLI residential program who are responsible for helping to shape the next generation of online education. And these teams rather have mentors who are assigned to them who help and guide them along the way so that their projects can come to fruition after the year is over. So a little bit more of that in a minute, but I just wanted to share what the MOLLI team looks like. Now, the objectives of MOLLI, really, these are just some of the objectives. Let me share that with you. And some of these objectives are ones that were part of the original MOLLI. So number one, we continue to have a main focal point or focus on online education leadership. What distinguishes MOLLI from, say, Maryland Online is that this component of leadership, this discipline of leadership, is key in our professional development. It's key in our community of practice. MOLLI provides that platform for emerging leaders and experienced leaders in online education to have a place where they can communicate with one another, share best practices with one another, talk about some of the challenges that they may be facing in their role at their institution. And we also network as a result of our professional development. So you will see in a minute what these continuous professional development will look like with this reimagined MOLLI. But what I will share is that what we're doing slightly different from the original MOLLI is that we're going to be more intentional about our professional development and align it better with the changes that are happening in higher education. We're going to be much more strategic about the evolving landscape of online education and online education leadership. And also, quite slightly different with this MOLLI Reimagination is a greater focus, a sharper focus on talent. We're firm believers of homegrown talent, as I mentioned earlier. And so that talent pipeline that we want to continue growing across the state and across the region through participation in our MOLLI professional development is important to us, because the more that we can share the wealth of knowledge and the more that our network can develop in these areas, I think the better our communities will be, and ultimately the better that our students will become as they get through their educational journey and move on into their next chapter in their lives. All right, so let me talk about some of those events. So let me share this for a minute here. As I envisioned this Reimagined MOLLI, I had extensive conversations, not only with the Maryland Online Senior Leadership, as I mentioned earlier, but extensive conversations with many, many different people across the state, across the region, and across the country. And I did extensive research on what could a reimagined online education leadership program look like. And in particular, I leaned on the previous cohort of the MOLLI residential program participants this past year in 2023, and asked for their insight, asked for their perspectives on what else would they like to see through MOLLI? What else would they like to be able to take advantage of through MOLLI? And so after thorough examination and analysis of all the things that I had gathered and compiled, these are the things these are just really some of the events that will be happening this year. So I wanted to provide a little insight into these events. First and foremost, let me talk about the first two together, because these first two are really what launches MOLLI 2.0. This newly redesigned MOLLI will be launched as of next week, in fact, with our series of leadership talk webinars and expert insights virtual workshops. And several minutes from now, I'm going to share with you that schedule, so stay tuned for that. But with these two pathways, these newly launched pathways, they are going to be expert-led by thought leaders and practitioners from across the state and across the country, really, because I'd like to tap into the wealth that is our online education network. I have talked with a lot of different people about their expertise and how they can help us shape the future of online education as a broader community. And so I have asked many of them to be presenters and at these leadership talk webinars and these expert insight virtual workshops. So more on that in a minute. We do have a couple of in-person opportunities as well. And this next one here is relatively new. It's brand new. In-person retreat. There is going to be an in-person retreat this June. And this is going to offer those who will be able to come for a full day retreat to come together and listen to and work with community leaders, again, thought leaders, practitioners, other people who can provide some insight into how we can shape the future of online education, particularly in the state, but of course, across the region. So more details as they get finalized will be shared with everybody. So please be on the lookout for information about that in-person retreat. Now, the other in-person opportunity is the one that I had kept mentioning, which is the residential program. This is probably what's considered MOLLI's leadership component. It has been around since its inception in 2017, and it is pretty much a 4-day immersive learning opportunity held traditionally in Annapolis, state capital. And it is really an opportunity for us, again, to do a deep dive into the most relevant topics and have timely discussions on the most relevant and timely topics on online education leadership. So as those details get finalized, I will be sure to release that. My public information coordinator, Jessica Adams, will also help with marketing these two in-person opportunities. And then many of you know this who are in this space, who do online education. There is National Online Learning Day, September 15th this year. And then there's also National Distance Learning Week that is held in the full week in early November. We are planning events and activities to celebrate those time periods, and it really is a great way to increase awareness about all the accomplishments that have happened in the online education space, and in particular online education leadership. So I'm really excited about those activities, and again, an opportunity for us to do greater networking, more intentional networking in these spaces. So I want to go a little deeper into these Leadership Talk webinar series I had mentioned earlier, and the Expert Insight workshops. They will be held throughout this year, starting again next week, January 31st, 10 a.m. And I'll go into detail about what that topic is and who the presenter is in a minute. But when we came up with the Leadership Talk webinar series, we wanted to make sure that, again, that they were expert-led, and that we really are focusing on the most timeliest of topics. And what that means is that it's going to require all of us, and in particular me especially, to have our fingers on the pulse in online education, because it is rapidly changing, much more so than even it was 5 years ago. And so if we can know through research, through keeping abreast of what's going on out there, through participation, our own participation in professional development, we will be able to know and kind of predict what's going to happen in online education 1, 2, or even 3 years from now. And if we are able to see what those are, what's coming down the road, we can offer those opportunities now, so that the folks who participate in our professional development series through MOLLI will be even better equipped to tackle the future of online education. And with these Expert Insight workshops, these are opportunities for our participants to get hands-on with these topics, to engage in activities that our workshop presenters and facilitators are going to be working on. And so I'm really excited about that. These workshops are different from the webinar insofar as the hope is that faculty, staff, administrators, and practitioners can come into these workshops and get their hands dirty in some of these things and be able to bring it back and apply it to their institution or in their role almost immediately. So really exciting things ahead. Now, in terms of opportunities, as I mentioned earlier, we tap into the wealth of our state, our region, and certainly across the country. And so what are some of those ways in which you can participate, your colleagues can participate? Definitely be a participant in these professional development opportunities, as you are doing today, by signing up to be involved and to hear and listen and to learn from all of us. But the other ways in which one can participate is to help with event planning.
Morning, Nina.
Good morning.
Because a lot of these things are highly collaborative. In order for these events to really be successful, it really is all hands on deck. And so if there is an opportunity for you to help with event planning, whether it's the in-person retreat, the residential program, or any of the professional development opportunities offered virtually, definitely let me know what your interest is in and what expertise you have, and we can match you up appropriately. And then if there's a topic out there that you're really interested in presenting on or being a moderator for, certainly let me know as well, and we can again have that discussion about where to best place you in. So I'm always looking for volunteers, because I think it's a great way to expand our network and just continue building healthy relationships in the online education space. So here is the schedule. I know it's a lot there, and I can definitely share. And all of this information, by the way, is on the MOLLI website. And the MOLLI website also consists of the registration system, so that you can directly register from that. But you can also register there's a QR code at the very bottom that if you use your mobile device, you can log into or go right straight to our MOLLI website. So what you see here is our monthly webinars and workshops. On the left column, you have the Leadership Talk webinars I had mentioned, and on the right column are Expert Insights workshops, and then that in-person retreat I had also mentioned. So here are the presenters for at least spring 2024. So the first webinar is going to be kicked off next week, as I mentioned earlier, next Wednesday, January 31st, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, same time as this one. And the person who's going to kick that off for us is Dr. Michael Mills. He is the Vice President of E-Learning, Innovation, and Teaching Excellence at Montgomery College. He is also the board chair of Maryland Online, and he does a lot of work in artificial intelligence and online education. And so his presentation is going to focus on how can we lead and navigate through all of this that is happening with respect to artificial intelligence and online. So if you haven't yet registered for that webinar, please definitely do. And then you can see the rest of the webinars. The next webinar, it's alternating, so every other month. The next one will be the end of March. And Steve Cabral, who is the Dean of Online Learning from the Community College of Baltimore County, also in Maryland, is going to talk about what strategic planning for online learning success looks like. He's going to guide us through what are the essential elements of strategic planning, and how can we benefit from a thoughtful strategic plan at our respective institutions. And then the end of May, we're really fortunate to have Dr. Deb Adair, who is the CEO of Quality Matters, and she's going to lead us in a discussion on what quality assurance and accreditation in online education should look like. She's going to provide some insight exploration of leadership strategies and best practices and how to make sure that we have and uphold the highest standards in online education. And so those are the spring webinars. And on the right side, I have the Expert Insights workshops there for you. And the workshop will be kicked off in February, toward the end of February. We have Dr. Karen Cangialosi, who is the director of Every Learner Everywhere. She's going to do a workshop on how we can leverage artificial intelligence, data, and technology in online education. And so really what Dr. Mills's webinar and Dr. Karen Cangialosi's workshop really go hand in hand. So if you're able to come to both of those, it would be really, really beneficial. And I'm excited about the April workshop as well, because we have co-presenters for that one. We have Dr. Marina Amini, who is the Executive Director from the California Virtual Campus of the California Community Colleges, and Dr. Dana Gullo, who is the Associate Dean for Teaching, Learning, and Technology in Cecil College in Maryland, who's going to walk us through what and how we can lead a culture of belonging in our online learning environment so that our students have this inclusive and welcoming environment in their online learning spaces. And then the fall webinars and workshops are at the very bottom. And so at this point, those details are still being ironed out. If any of those webinars or workshops are of interest to you in terms of helping to plan and deliver, please let me know. I'm happy to have a meeting with you to talk about that. And I'm going to end with this. So here is my contact information. Here is the MOLLI Leadership website. And the MOLLI Leadership website is, as I mentioned earlier, being revamped as well. One of the things that I'm really excited about what the MOLLI website is going to have is a repository for all of the annual team projects that the MOLLI RP residential program participants will be involved in. And by having that repository on the website will provide all of you and all of us an opportunity to see what are MOLLI participants doing in this online education space, and how will their projects influence the future of online education. And so that's going to be a really great way to learn about some of the evolution and developments of online education in the state. So without further ado, I am going to now bring this back over to Robyn, who probably has been monitoring the chat for me. and I'm happy to answer any questions about this revamped and redesigned MOLLI.
So far, we don't have any questions in the chat, Shinta. Perhaps people can raise their hands and we can take questions from the group that is assembled here.
Shinta, maybe you said this, but are all of those webinars and workshops at 10 a.m.?
That's a great question, Marjorie. Thank you for asking. So the majority of the workshops and webinars are at 10 a.m. There are a couple that will be held in the afternoon at 1 p.m. And so those will be the April and May opportunities. Those will be held at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We wanted to be able to provide, different time slots depending on, because I also recognize that there are colleagues who from across the country signing up and registering, and we want to make our webinars and workshops accessible to those with different time zones as well.
Shinta,
So-
can you, oh, sorry,
Go
somebody
ahead,
started.
Julie. Go ahead, Julie.
Thanks. Shinta, I wondered if you could share any thoughts you might have about how being first of all, a participant in a MOLLI residential program cohort, and then later a facilitator helped you have ideas about how to shape the future agenda for MOLLI.
Thank you for that, Julie. And yes, so part of my history is that I joined the MOLLI residential program in 2019, the year before the pandemic, and just thoroughly enjoyed it. And just thought it was well done. And as I mentioned, the founding director, Doug Gray, did a great job with his staff, did a great job in facilitating that 4-day immersive program. And then eventually became one of the facilitators in the 2021 residential program. And now obviously the director. And so that the opportunities that I've had to see MOLLI grow and develop and evolve has been really invaluable. And that has influenced this vision that I had with this Reimagined MOLLI. Because what I'm the kind of person where after I am engaged in something, I typically write something down and say, oh, I'd love to see more of this. Or I wonder if we can do this one slightly different. And I had been taking notes along the way and talking with people along the way. And when the opportunity for becoming the MOLLI director came and I had conversations with many different people, I looked at those notes and I thought, okay, let's see how we can compile all of the things that we have learned, that I have learned since 2019, and the things that are happening now as a result of the pandemic and everything else that has happened in higher ed. And here we have this Reimagined MOLLI. So it really has been a journey, a multi-year journey in that sense.
Thank you. That it's clear that you've had the opportunity to have several different perspectives on the MOLLI program, which I think has helped you formulate where we go from here. And it looks like a very strong program going forward. I think there might be at least one.
There are a couple of
question.
comments
Yeah,
in the
great.
chat. So a couple of comments. The first is Rob Coyle has no questions, but this sounds like an exciting development and well done, MOLLI team. And also Debbie Dorsey said, thanks, Shinta. This was very informative. We have a question from Annie DeNicolo. She wonders if the MOLLI programs are relevant to community adult ESOL instructors and programs. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Yes, thank you, Anna. Great question. And the answer is yes. And because we want to be inclusive, we are inclusive of all the different things that are happening in higher education and online education. So it is this MOLLI in general, and certainly the different professional development are open to credit. It is open to workforce development. It is really open to practitioners. We value the different perspectives, as Julie had mentioned, that the different perspectives that help to to influence the narrative that will be the continuous evolution of MOLLI. So long story short, Anna, absolutely, it is relevant and open.
Actually, that your answer dovetails really nicely into a question that Mike Mills just asked, which was, as you look at the traits of leadership in an online environment moving forward, can you identify a few of those traits? I'm sure you've seen a bunch from your experience in working with emerging leaders in MOLLI. So
Yes. Well, thank you for that question, Mike. This is a really good one. One thing that comes to mind is adaptability. So we talk about higher ed landscape and online education landscape changing rapidly. And so the ability for a leader in an online environment, especially, to know what's happening and to even know what might happen that hasn't happened yet, and to be able to respond in a way that is productive and with foresight is important. I think that a leader who can kind of see what's going on, do an environmental scan continuously is very important. The other thing that I would also add is communication and transformation. Somebody who is open-minded and able to transform, or have a team who can help them transform the online space at their institution or in their organization, is critical for the success of that organization, and certainly critical for the success of that person too, as an online education leader. And to be able to communicate those and be very transparent about what's happening and what should we be thinking about, those are all, again, important traits to have in the online space, leadership traits.
wonderful. Thank you, Shinta. And Anna has a follow-up question. She wants to know if MOLLI will be addressing issues related to digital literacy and digital equity, and if you have any thoughts you might want to share on those topics.
Anna, that's a really great question. So this actually dovetails into the fact that this is a Maryland online webinar. So I want to share with you that there are Maryland online webinars, and then there is the MOLLI webinars and workshops. And so I encourage all of you to go to the Maryland Online website. Those webinars definitely cover the various things that are related to the digital teaching and learning environments, digital tools, digital literacy, digital equity, Anna, that you pointed out. And then from the MOLLI perspective, we can certainly cover those topics by way of talking about how can we lead educational practitioners and administrators and faculty leaders in that space. So I wanted to provide that distinction between Maryland Online and their focal areas and MOLLI and the focal areas there. But yeah, and a long story short, Anna, absolutely, we will address digital literacy and digital equity through a leadership lens.
Awesome. Any other questions for Shinta? And we got a thumbs up from Anna, so thank you. I think people are so awestruck that they're looking forward to all these great things coming with the great topics that you've got going on, Shinta, the webinars as well as the virtual workshops. I think we can't wait to get started with them. So.
Well, and thank you, Robyn, and I'm really excited about the following year. So what I've given you is a preview of what's happening this year and a little bit of the residential program, which is next year. But there are greater opportunities for us to continue the conversations about what next year's MOLLI might also look like, because that is part of the reimagination. I'm a firm believer of continuous learning, continuous relationship building, continuous community of practice and networking. And I want to provide those opportunities, both virtual as well as in person. And I also want to be able to offer these opportunities across the nation, certainly, because again, tapping into the wealth of knowledge that we have everywhere is critical for the overall success of online programs, online institutions, online education. And again, when we're successful in the spaces that we occupy, then our students become successful and therefore the communities become successful. So definitely you'll be hearing and seeing emails or through the MOLLI website information about those things in the months to come. And I'm excited about some of the things that have already been in discussion. So stay tuned for it for sure.
There are a couple of other comments here in the chat. Adam Phantom says, thank you for the webinar about these upcoming opportunities. Kikilo also says, thank you so much, Dr. Hernandez. And Julie Hamlin wanted us to make sure that we point out that since we were speaking a little bit about MOLPD events, she wants to recognize Carla Ziegler of Garrett County Community College, and also the chairs of the PD committee for MOL board, and also Marjorie Rawhauser, who's our PD coordinator, and she was the one who let you guys in when the webinar started. So we couldn't do this without an amazing team of people to pool their resources and pull it all together. So thank you for everyone who helped.
Well, I also want to thank you, Robyn, because Robyn is one of the recipients of the Doug Gray Leadership Excellence Award that we just implemented this past summer. And we really want to recognize you for your leadership efforts, both in the MOLLI residential program, but also in the community. The other recipient is Suzette Spencer, who is the library director at Montgomery College. And I also want to recognize and thank her for her leadership efforts, again, both in the residential program, as well as just in her space in the community. So it really is just, I'm honored to be surrounded by colleagues like you who help to shape and influence all these discussions that we're having about the Reimagined MOLLI.
Yeah, the landscape is changing rapidly, like you pointed out. So we get by with a little help from our friends and our colleagues, really trying to share insights and how different colleges here in Maryland have tackled similar problems and similar challenges to find solutions that are workable. Carla Ziegler points out we really have a great team. And Julie also wanted to point out that there are several MOLLI alums attending today, and I noticed that as well. So the thing that I love about the MOLLI community is that it continues. It's not just a one-stop. I attended a leadership residential program. The relationships and the conversations continue and persist despite the fact that we're spread out all over the state of Maryland. So it's been a good experience. All righty, so our chat is pretty quiet. Oh, Mike is jumping in there. He wants to point out how unique MOL and MOLLI are in the broader educational landscape, that very few states have consortia and opportunities like this at the state level. And I love that he knows that he's pointing that out. We have a tremendous resource in each other. Yeah, what do you think about that? Have you seen what other states are doing? Have you used any of that information to help you with modeling for MOLLI 2.0, Shinta?
Absolutely. So in fact, one of the presenters, and I think it's the March one with Dr. Dana Gullo, Dr. Marina Amini is the executive director at the California Virtual Campus. And I've consulted with her, talked with her quite a bit about what the California Virtual Campus and their system looks like. And she's put me in touch with a couple of others too, who have either consortia or statewide systems. And listening to them and listening to the opportunities that they have given to their colleagues is impressive. But also listening to what they're doing allows me to see, well, how can we do something that is different, that allows us to further stand out and be unique in the way that we shape the future MOLLI. Because one of the things that I would love for us to do and continue doing is really find a way that when people think about online education and consortia and opportunities like that are happening like this, that Maryland Online or MOLLI or MOLLI are the first things that pop into their minds. So we will continue having those discussions. It is always a work in progress. That's why I'm a firm believer in having these continuous workshops and webinars, because it's not just about providing information to the people who register and come in, but it's the networking. It's this, sometimes it's more this informal Q&A piece that we really get a lot of great ideas and really can connect with other people in a more organic space. So to answer your question, yes, definitely I've been looking into and talking with people who have statewide systems or a similar setup to us through this consortia, and it's been really valuable.
If I can ask an unscripted question, I was just thinking, like, who do you listen to? Who are your resources? Who is your hot kind of podcast that you follow, or a Substack that you're reading? Like, where you said you keep your finger on the pulse of developments in e-learning and distance learning, online education. I'd love to know who you're listening to right now and who you're following.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think first and foremost, and many of us in this room probably do this, but we subscribe to Inside Higher Ed and Chronicle for Higher Education. That pops up a lot in so many different spaces. And so whenever there's an opportunity for me to see an article, whether it's online education or just leadership in general, because leadership as a discipline could be applied to all the other disciplines that make up higher ed. So I definitely certainly get my articles and newsworthy information from those two sources. I also take a look at EDUCAUSE and OLC, and am a frequent visitor of LinkedIn and other social media spaces. For those of you who might be in my network in LinkedIn, that's another place where a lot of great information comes out of what's happening in online education, as well as leadership in general. I mentioned to you that continuous learning is important. I myself are the products of not just the MOLLI residential program, but just about every year I participate in some sort of long-term leadership development program. The most recent one was here called Leadership Montgomery. It's the Montgomery County's signature program for developing leaders. And I think a lot of other counties across the country have something similar. But I also look at, go to them, talk with them, take a look at some of the seminars that they offer as well on what does leadership look like now and what should it look like into the future. Because again, going back to the question that Mike had asked about what are some of those important traits in a leader for online education, some of them I'm learning from some of these more general leadership development programs that I then can apply to online education leadership. So those are just some of the things that I tap into on a very regular basis. But certainly if anyone is interested in being a part of the LinkedIn network, we do have a MOLLI LinkedIn that, if you put in MarylandOnline Leadership Institute, it will pop up. I am also there. I do quite a bit with some of my colleagues, including Mike Mills and Suzette Spencer, and a couple of other colleagues I see here from Montgomery College who are frequent posters or readers on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's a great question. It's really important to just keep abreast of what's going on, to understand the research behind some of the best practices that are being utilized, so that we know what is it that we ought to be focusing on, what is it that we ought to be, what are the challenges that are out there, and how can we address those challenges in a very effective and efficient way. So yeah, those have been very insightful for me.
It seems like there's so many different information streams. It's nice to be able to have them consolidated as far as like looking at it from a Maryland perspective. And I think that these webinars and virtual workshops and the in-person retreat coming up in June are really going to be great opportunities to kind of, with your feet on the ground, have real conversations about what people are experiencing and how they've navigated challenges. So.
And one of the things I'll add to that is one of the areas of the MOLLI website redesign is there's a tab right now that says Newsflash. And eventually that Newsflash will be filled with timely articles, timely studies, timely things that we ought to be knowing in this online education space, so that people who are coming to our website can see, okay, what's happening? What should we know? What do we got to read about? So I'm excited about developing that Newsflash with with my public information coordinator, Jessica Adams. So we'll be able to launch that shortly.
I have put in links in the chat to the MOLLI website and also to the Maryland Online PD network as well. What do you think, Marjorie? Should we try to wrap up for today, or?
Sure, I think we've had a good discussion. I'll go ahead and put up the closing slide in case anyone wants to take a picture of it for your own professional development records. Let me just. So you can snip that or photograph it or whatever you want to do with that. Oh, sorry. There it is. So thank you all for being here. Robyn, thanks for such a nice job moderating. And thanks for the rest of you who are going to do future webinars.
Yeah, I think we've got a webinar coming up for Maryland Online on February 15th, which is Let's Chat About ChatGPT. So very timely issue, and that'll be, if you follow the link to Maryland Online, you can sign up for that professional development experience there. And I think the chat also reflected the MOLLI webinars and where you can find that information. And also someone asked if you can get on the MOLLI mailing list. And so we put the contact information, the contact sheet in there as well. So thank you, Dr. Hernandez. You did an amazing job.
Thank you to you, Robyn, and thank you to everybody who's here, and for the senior MOL leadership for your support, because without it, obviously MOLLI can't be reimagined in the way that we are doing it. So I appreciate your support. Thank you, everybody, and I look forward to seeing you at these future opportunities.
Nice job. Thank you.
Thank
I think
you.
that was a good start. And Robyn, thank you. You did a great job moderating and
Yes.
leading questions. So thank you very much for doing that. I think you set the standard for future moderators.
Uh-oh. Oh, good. Well, it was helpful that Mike dropped some questions in the chat. Yeah, Mike saved our bacon a little bit there to get the conversation started. But good job, Shinta. Really awesome.
Yes, that was very good. That was very good. And I did recognize a lot of MOLLI alums on the webinar. So that was nice.
Yeah, and that's really wonderful to see. And I'm hoping that we'll see them next week as well.
Yeah. Thanks for including me. Thanks for thinking of me. This was a good practice for me. I've never done anything like this before. So wow.
I got over thought differently.
You did great.
You did a great job.
Awesome. Cool. Well, you guys have a wonderful day.
You
Thanks
too.
so much.
Thanks to both of you.
See you next week.
All
See you
right.
next week.
Bye.
Bye.